Now it's time to go on, and I have the pleasure to present our next guest. This is the Global Creative Director of WSJ Custom Studios, Mr. David Lennon. Please welcome on stage.
I'm David Lennon. I'm the Global Creative Director for Wall Street Journal Custom Studios. We're part of the Wall Street Journal's advertising department, and we make branded content. I joined in 2015 when we were a very print-focused team. There was other teams out there like T-Brand from the New York Times and the Atlantic Studio who were miles ahead of what we were doing. And so what we did was we got together a couple of key people and we decided to change how we worked and how we went to clients to win business and then how to produce it and really catch up against the competitors. The first integrated campaign we did was a project called Cocainenomics, and it was with Netflix and their new season of Narcos, first season. And it was all about looking at the business of the cocaine trade through the eyes of the Wall Street Journal, the same way that our editorial team would break down an industry. We looked at the Medellin cartel and how we could analyse that and tell a story of their rise and their fall, which complemented the show itself. After that, we started to work with a lot of big clients that we were losing out. And over the past couple of years, we've done really well in winning top 40 500 business. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about was basically the art of VR storytelling. And we were pretty much the last custom content team, I think, into the VR space, because we'd spent so long telling clients not to invest in it because the return, unless you had a very specific goal, wasn't worth the money that you were putting into it. And so from a publisher's point of view, we knew that there weren't that many headsets out there, certainly with Wall Street Journal audience, and people's attention spans weren't going to be held in the same way that they will be with traditional storytelling in written form or in video or even in infographics. So after saying no to clients for so long, what did we do? When we said yes, well, the difference was that Morgan Stanley had come to us and they had a specific brief that kind of set the bells off with us, where we said this might work. They didn't want to just do a campaign, they wanted to have something they could take to students all across North America in headsets and make them look cool. They wanted to talk about their Institute for Sustainable Investing and how Morgan Stanley was a Wall Street bank but was making a stand and not only acknowledging climate change but showing the work that they do with energy partners and mobility partners to really tell a story about how companies are using technology to make investments now that hopefully will build a better future and reduce the risks of climate change. So once we got interested in a project where the campaign could live beyond the 3 months it was going to run with us and stay in headsets for possibly years, we then had to work out how to do it. And again, this is the first time that we've done VR, so we couldn't really ask any of the competitors to help out. And so we had to do it ourselves. And one of the last things that we did, which was my fault, was actually price out how much it was going to cost. So the clients thought they want to do a story with us. We'd sold them on the idea of showcasing climate change and it happening in real time, and then showcasing the clients that they work with and how they're making decisions now that will hopefully improve the future. And so we had a brief that went out to production companies, and it was very specific in terms of price range and what we wanted to get. The response that we got was anywhere from 150 grand to nearly $1 million in terms of production of how much it was going to cost to film in 3 different locations on 2-day shoots. And so we were gobsmacked, we didn't know what to do. Normally you'd think that the most expensive is the best and the cheapest is the worst. And we were lost, and to be honest it was a friend of our company who we went out, we had beers, I told him I was in this real bad place where we were going to have to spend hundreds and hundreds of thousands more than I thought to make this production come off. And he said, well, why don't you try this company? And it was a company in London called Infinite 360. And they were a traditional video production house. And what they did was bring 20, 30 years of knowledge of how to handle clients, how to deal with pre-production, shoots, post-production, how to deliver on time, and how to kind of go over all the bumps that you get on a shoot, and still package it in this new form of storytelling, because a lot of the people that we spoke to were startups, and it really scared us that we were going in on our first big piece of VR with companies that were kind of using us as a way to get in the market itself. So we worked with Infinite 360. We sat them down in a room and we basically just brainwashed them with what we wanted to achieve. And so what happened was that we got to go to 3 locations. There's Kiribati, which is in the Central Pacific Ocean. It's on the international date line and the equator. It's the least visited country in the world, and it's basically a coral atoll. Most of the land is about as high as this stage from the sea level. Most of it is less than a mile thick, and it's like a wishbone, the main island. And what happens is when they have high tides, the water literally goes over the entire country. So it will come in from the lagoon side and blow out, take in houses, people, everything with it. The highest point is 3 meters, and so when a big storm hits, there's not anywhere that they can go, and so they tend to climb to the highest point in concrete houses. Well, that's where we're stuck. And so we'd showcased climate change, and then what we wanted to do next was showcase the clients that Morgan Stanley were working with. One was First solar power company, who was using tribal lands in America, the Native American lands, and working with the Native American councils to place solar power on their lands so that they could generate money for the Native Americans, but also generate clean power for communities. So they had a massive site that was generating enough for 100,000 homes in LA, based in Nevada, next to Death Valley. And then the third place that we went to was San Francisco, and we worked with Uber, and Uber basically just launched the carpooling app, Uber Pool, and that's revolutionised the way that people commute to work. And so most cities in the world are kind of gridlocked. There's no extra space to build new traffic lanes, there's no space to build any new rail links, or it's really expensive. And what Uber Pool had done was take the logarithm that would take you from A to B and pick people up along the way. And so we talked to a guy there who's 30 years old, whose decision to work out a carpooling app has now taken off within the first 9 months of it 300 million miles in commuter miles. And this could be the way that very old European cities improve the commute for a lot of the people that are working there. And so we had the stories, and how were we going to bring them to life? Well, we've got a problem because I don't think I can play the video now. No. So if you do a search on your phones for WSJ, Capital Creates Change, you'll find a site that we've got, and basically it was a mix of traditional video storytelling, VR, and then written editorial. And what we realised as we went through and told these stories was we were thinking it was going to be a VR heavy piece. VR was going to be on the landing page, and everywhere that you went, VR would be the main storytelling component. And what we realised as we went through was that VR actually is not as good a narrative storytelling device as you would think, and that people kind of get lost, especially when they put on a headset with where they are and the whole discovery of the space that they're in. With the clients at Morgan Stanley, we realised that people who'd watched the video, who'd met the people, who'd seen the location, who had an empathy to the story, when we put the headsets on them, they got it so much better and were really engaged and wanted to wear it again and again, to go back boots on the ground in all of these locations. And that was a really interesting thing for us. We thought that VR would be the hero, and in fact it played second fiddle to video. And then after the videos, we had written editorial from our writers who'd gone and got a lot of background information to support it. And what that did was massively drive up the engagement time. that we had on the site. We also, as well as for headset users, if you're on desktop, you can view the 360 video, it was stereoscopic, and then you can also watch it on your mobile device as well. So that was the big key finding for us, was VR works really well when it's one part of a kind of whole storytelling family, and the more that you can surround the user with the story, the better it is and the more engaged they'll be when it comes to using VR as an actual device. Any questions?